Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Health, Environment, Civil Rights, and Engagement Committee on October 21st, 2019. My name is Philippe Cunningham, and I am the chair of this committee. Joining me at the dais are Council Members Schrader, Gordon, Johnson, and Council Vice President Jenkins. Please let the record reflect that we have a quorum and can conduct the business of this committee. Colleagues, we have two items on today's agenda, one consent and one discussion. The first is authorizing a 25-year, on the consent agenda, we'll go ahead and approve that, authorizing a 25-year lease in the amount of $100 per year with Greenway Solar LLC for roof space at the East Side Storage and Maintenance Facility to install a low-income household community solar garden. I just want to first say that thank you to the folks who have led this work. It's been about a year in the making, so thank you so much for taking the time and really seeing this through. We are really producing quite a lot of solar space that's really impacting in a positive way, increasing access to low-income households to be able to access solar energy. So thank you all so much for your leadership on that. And with that, do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, those all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and that item carries. Our last item on the agenda is a discussion item, which is receiving and filing the Americans with Disabilities Act Action Plan and Language Access Report for 2019. All right, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Sure. Chair Cunningham, council members, happy Mondays. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Nick. I am the ADA and Language Access Coordinator for the City of Minneapolis in the Neighborhood and Community Relations Department. And today I will be talking about our work up to date with our Americans with Disabilities Act, our ADA Action Plan, as well as our Language Access Plan. Today's presentation will highlight both our ADA initiatives as well as our language access initiatives, how we actually approach that as a city enterprise, working with our residents and working with our community constituents, and then a lot of our accomplishments within 2018 and 2019. So broadly speaking, both the ADA and what we call limited English proficiency are federal mandates. They're civil rights law, and to simply state it, both laws state that we will not prohibit based off of disability or ability, and we won't discriminate off of national origin or language. So what that means is that we create a comprehensive plan with strategies to approach both bodies of work. One is how do we identify deficiencies and issues for folks with disabilities, and then the strategies and timelines to remove those barriers and move to a more accessible city operation as well as a city overall. And the second one is how do we identify strategies and protocols to make sure that our interactions with folks with limited or non-English skills are able to access our programs and services and to communicate with our city staff. So how we do that is through a collaborative approach, a very systematic enterprise-wide body of work. And with our city departments, we have 21, hundreds of programs and services, and our work is actually to not actually oversee what they're doing, but to support and enhance their program or service area. So it's to understand what the service or program delivery is, if there are other regulations, standards to it, and then at the same time creating strategies and protocols and ways that we could actually amplify their work in their interaction. So recognizing that they are the ones that owns it. We are there to help amplify and support that work, and then with the outcome of making sure that we are a more accessible and inclusive city. And then I support our advisory committee for people with disabilities. This is a very passionate group of folks that are I believe some of the top accessibility specialists, not only within the state of Minnesota, but the country. The residents that reside here within the city, they are a diverse set of groups this first set of group of folks with different abilities and disabilities, and they actually know their experiences better than I would. And we make sure that we are able to get different city programs, staff, and services to them to create a partnership that when we are moving forward, we are thinking with a inclusive mindset. And then our last approach is actually working with residents and communities themselves, because again, they know their stories, they know what they need in terms of that interaction point, and what we do is we build strategies around that. So this is a very collective approach, and I think we have one of the best models in the city. I'll say that on camera and, for the record. But a lot of folks look at us in terms of how do we actually integrate a lot of our systems together to make sure that we are able to, again, interact and make sure that people feel that they are inclusive and have decision-making power within our own processes here with the city. So a few examples of our work is with PV Plaza. Recently, it undertook a restorative project, one that took years, and then we were actually able to work with Public Works as well as CPED in making sure that not only do we remodel the entire plaza, but we increased accessibility. I think we went from 7,500 square foot of accessible space to about 11,000. Don't quote me on those numbers, but we actually doubled it. And we included 2 new entrances as well as raising the plaza to be accessible to everyone as well. Other works that we've done is with Public Works, making sure that our right-of-ways are accessible not only to people with disabilities, but other user groups out there, such as mothers and fathers, as well as our aging community. As far as a lot of our language access or communication work goes, we work with all the city departments and think of innovative strategies to actually do things outside of just translating document and content. So a good example of that is with the Super Bowl and the Fatal 4 that happened within the last 2 years. With communications in the Joint Information Center, we were only not able to create content that were in Hmong, Somali, and Spanish, Oromo, Vietnamese, and Lao, but we did videos, social media posts. We contracted with social media influencers from those particular communities to amplify our posts as well around public safety, any traffic-related concerns. We actually work with a lot of our city departments in making sure that we host community meetings in their particular language. The picture at the bottom left is our Neighborhoods 2020 meeting. We've done comp plan meetings in different languages. We work with, let's say, the health department and their lead inspectors, their food inspectors in doing training in Somali, doing training in Mandarin, doing training in Spanish with business owners, with community folks, with residents. So we try to ingrain a lot of this work around into our core service areas. So it's not something that people are checking off because it's the law, but it's something that city staff is doing because it's the right way to operate. So within NCR, we manage all of our city vendors that provide interpreting and translation services. That's about 15 different vendors. And since 2010, we've been able to increase the amount that we spend on our contracted services. And what that means is we invest more into making sure that our information, our interaction is accessible to folks that speak a different language or someone that use American Sign Language. To the right is for 2018, a breakdown of the how much each department spent out of that 2018 figure of $128,000. NCR is about almost 50% because we actually support our language lines for 311. So we have dial options in Spanish, Somali, and Hmong. So once you call 311, you can press 2 for Spanish, 3 for Somali, and 4 for Hmong. And then our other city departments have chose to invest in either translation or interpreting services as well. For 2018, we interacted with about maybe up to 100 different languages. Of those 100 languages, that's about 1,500 hours of interpreting, and that's broken down to phone interpreting as well as in-person interpreters. Of that 1,500 hours, our top 3 languages, of course, is Spanish, Somali, and Hmong. 60% of that is Spanish, so that's roughly about 900 hours. And then American Sign Language comes in at 5%. At the bottom, it shows that of the work that we do, 55% is in our phone interpreting services, and that's with 311 and utility billing, police, as well as other city departments as well. And what that also indicates is it's resident driven. So we are not requesting an interpreter to be there. It's someone calling in, requesting a Spanish interpreter, or let's say an Amharic interpreter, an Oromo interpreter. So that shows that people are choosing to contact us and interact and communicate with us in their home and native language. A new service that we rolled out this year is what we call IRA. It's an app. It's a navigation app for folks with limited or low vision. And what it does is it utilizes your smartphone technology to connect with a human navigator. They use your camera to view the surroundings around you and help you navigate the physical space. And through our contract, we actually provide this service for free on Nicollet Mall, the Convention Center, Target Center, and here in City Hall. So since we did our hard launch in April, folks, we've been averaging about 300 minutes a month. And then most of the usage is off of Nicollet Mall with about 1,800 minutes. And then per the ADA, it's a requirement for us to not only assess our programs and services and figure out what the deficiencies are, but assess the space that we actually deliver those programs and services as well. So that work lives within our property services division, and they have what's called an ADA transition plan. Every local government agency is required to provide a transition plan in determining what their physical barriers are. So when we did our ADA action plan and evaluation back in 2015, Property Services evaluated our facilities along with us and issued a transition plan. So as of now, by the end of 2019, we'll be 50% through that transition plan. And they have completed phase 1, and phase 1 is more of modifications and alterations that require little work. So moving a mirror up or down in the restrooms, or adding a new door handle. So those are small modifications. They are currently going halfway through phase 2. And that's larger renovation projects with the restrooms, with lobbies, and entrances, sidewalks to the particular facilities. So they are working through our police precincts, our other service nodes, and then once they are completed with phase 2, we will look at funding for the larger projects, and that's phase 3. Moving into 2019 and 2020, these are the facilities that they will start estimating and doing cost analysis for renovation projects.
I have a question or comment from Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. I'm curious, are gender-neutral bathrooms included in these upgrades and expansions as they move through the various phases?
I would have to get back to you on that. Property Services manages that, and I think depending on who they are working with, the city department or the facility folks, they would review that. I know that with a lot of our newer facilities, they actually incorporate that into the planning process. So if there's more time, or depending on the space, that's something that they would work through. So that's something that I could explore and get back to you on.
Yes, please. I mean, it absolutely is an access issue.
Correct.
And I know that there was conversation that upgrades to existing facilities would be made too. So I'm thinking that for efficiency's sake, they would be done at the time that we are upgrading these facilities.
I'll explore that.
Yeah.
We have a great group of folks that's actually managing this work, so they're very responsive, and would love to have that conversation.
All right, thank you.
I do believe, if I may, I do believe that that is the case, because money was allocated during the last term for existing facilities. I think it would be helpful just to get that for sure, get that information for sure. But I know that there was definitely a plan that as this work was happening, that would also be folded in. So it would be helpful to know if that plan is being executed as such. So,
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next large bucket is actually with our public right-of-ways that's managed by our Public Works Department. In 2018, because we're still through 2019, they were able to repair and bring up to code 479 ramps throughout the city. This is outside of their capital improvement project, this is with their capital improvement project as well as an ADA replacement program. And then they also installed 37 accessible pedestrian signals at different intersections. And a new program that they incorporated is a sidewalk gap program, and they filled in about 3 miles worth. So much like property services and our facilities plan, Public Works manages what we call our transition plan for our public right-of-ways, and they have been reviewing and updating that plan within the last few years, and it's set to be released this November for public comment. And the anticipated timeline is they will come back next year around Q1 to present to City Council. This last year, in the 2018 budget process, we were able to allocate funding for captioning of our city online streaming public meetings, as well as information videos. Throughout this year, we were able to secure a vendor, and we are currently going through a testing process right now, and hopefully we will make that service go live this year as well. So this is actually a very large win for us, especially for those in our deaf and hard of hearing community, as this would actually allow them to keep track of council proceedings live versus after the meetings are done and uploaded to YouTube with captioning.
I have a question or comment from Councilmember Johnson.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, is this capability of auto captioning, does that exist right now with live video through YouTube and such? And then also, do we know, have we first off received feedback, and do we have some idea of how many people this will benefit?
Sure. Chair Cunningham, Councilmember Johnson, I think to answer your first question, this is an automated system. And I believe when we had this conversation a few years ago, technology was not there yet, but it's greatly improved and caught up with us as well. So that's what we're testing right now, is actually the accuracy level of this. And we're working with Communications, who's owning this work, as well as our city clerk's office, to upload a, repository of different vocabulary words, acronyms that we use here at the city, unique words that we use here at the cities, as well as names as well. To answer your first question?
Yeah, and that's really great to hear. I know that auto captioning, at least a couple of years back, exceeded the accuracy level of human captioning, and especially I think when we were thinking about the idea of having a human try to translate in real time, it's a delay, right, that auto captioning doesn't have, and so it allows the conversation to be
correct.
Matching what's going on a little better.
There would still be somewhat of a delay as, audio feedback goes in, and I'm not the tech expert on this, but it would still capture things as they are being spoken as well. And much like a cart person, that's the on-site captioner, auto captioning would still kind of face some of the same, I guess, barriers as an on-site captioner would be, and that's really around how someone speaks, whether or not they're audible through their microphone system. So that's something that we are working through right now. Yep.
From my understanding as well, that this technology includes artificial intelligence so that it will increasingly be able to predict what people are going to say and increase the vocabulary. Is that correct? I thought that was pretty cool. I figured you'd appreciate that.
Yes.
So, all right, back to you.
Yeah, no problem. And then the last bit is actually with our city public website, and we worked very closely with IT as they were going through a revamp of our presence online as well, in terms of what the deficiencies are, not only from a digital perspective, but from a communication perspective as well. And that body of work has led to what will soon be our new city website launching this December. And the accessibility components around that will not only exceed what we set as a goal when we originally worked on it, but kind of meeting the current best practices right now for online platforms. And the accessibility features will not only help with navigation, but we're looking at communication and content for folks that are bilingual or limited English as well.
I've got a question or comment from Council Vice President Jenkins.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. Can you go back one slide? I'm just curious, is that you riding the scooter on the sidewalk, Nick?
Chair Cunningham, Council Vice President Jenkins, yes, it is. And that is actually a great collaboration, a good representation of collaborative work with our Public Works Department, Communications, as well as our member of our advisory committee for people with disabilities. We did a PSA around where or where not to ride and park the scooter. And Rosalind Sampson, one of our committee members, did great in the video, but we just needed someone to show improper use, and I volunteered. Yeah. Please visit YouTube.
That is
So
very
this
observant.
this is an example of what not to do, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. What not to do.
He was breaking the law.
Yes.
So thank you for breaking the law for the
I-
greater good.
Yeah. It's
Very good
about 5
eyesight.
minutes. But that actually concludes my presentation with the body of work. Looking from 2020 onwards, with Public Works coming back with their transition plan, we are currently reevaluating our ADA action plan right now for programs and services with our committee on people with disabilities, and we will be bringing that work back next year as well for you all. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Questions or comments? Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. I just wanted to say I appreciate the presentation and update, and I actually attended Disability Committee advisory group last week, and I'm glad to see that we're incorporating some of their recommendations. I do want to just acknowledge on behalf of the committee to my colleagues, they are very concerned that we do not always take their recommendations and concerns seriously. They also reminded me that all of us will likely become disabled one day, and so to really think about all of these improvements that we continuously make on behalf of the disability community, and not think about it just on behalf of the disability community, but in terms of how it helps us all move through society safely and accessibly as we go about our day-to-day activities.
Sure. If I could actually just comment, Chair Cunningham and Council Vice President Jenkins, thank you for that. I think it really strikes out what we believe as a core value, as accessibility not only benefits one particular group, but what we do to make accessible, it's inclusive for everyone as well. So that's why we do a lot of our work in making sure that we are not only coming from a standard or guidelines or law providing lens, but making sure that we are working from a human perspective, making sure that we leverage folks that are within the Senate enterprise and their technical knowledge and their subject matter experts, and then kind of folding that in with, again, the experiences of our communities. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I think it's important to think about how focusing on the folks who are the most disenfranchised and the most marginalized, how that does lift everyone up. For example, with curb cuts, an unexpected outcome was that it made it easier for parents with strollers.
Correct.
And it was originally for folks with wheelchairs to be able to get onto sidewalks. And so I think that point made by Council Vice President Jenkins is very, very well taken. So thank you for communicating that back. I have a question or comment from Councilmember Gordon.
So I'm just curious about when we're going live with our closed captioning. Did it say the fourth quarter of 2019?
Correct. So this year, sometime this year.
When does the fourth quarter start?
You know what? I'm very bad at math, so I'm not quite sure.
I think we're here.
Very soon. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to when it goes live, and hopefully we'll have some kind of a press release, or we can kind of push that out.
Correct.
That's going to be a pretty big deal.
Yep.
And do you think we're going to be able to then see that when we're in the council chambers as well? So if you're in the audience here, were you able to see closed caption up there?
Chair Cunningham, Councilmember Gordon, I believe it's dependent on if the video is being, I believe this is the live stream, so I would say yes. So if this is the live stream of this particular meeting, then we should be able to see it, yes. And then, yeah,
And that'll include all committee meetings as well as the council meetings?
correct. We will go with all live stream meetings. So let's say not only our council subcommittees, but the planning commission, who I believe is live streamed on our digital platform as well. So anything that's streaming through our digital platform will be captioned.
Well, that's going to be good to see and exciting, so make sure to let us know when that goes live.
Sure thing.
Great, thank you. I was curious about the limited English proficiency work. So, for example, in my ward, I have quite a diverse community, and what kind of supports are available for council members who represent diverse constituencies to be able to extend accessibility to those folks as well?
Sure. Chair Cunningham, much like our city departments, council members have access to our city vendors as well. So if there are, at the basic level, translation needs, we can actually take the content, translate it, and work with you all on making sure that we get it to you all at a timely level. And then for any type of constituency meeting or a community meeting, we can arrange in-person interpreters. And then if it's it really depends on what the interaction is. So if it's a small conversation, council actually has access to our phone interpreting services as well. So that way you're not waiting for an in-person interpreter or that process to get done. And then we also have what's called a video remote interpreting service as well. We're rolling that out. First, it was used by our Minneapolis Police Department for American Sign Language, but we are now expanding that for not only ASL, but to other city departments, but spoken languages to other city departments. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any other questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for that thorough presentation. Thank you all for your hard work. You've been a wonderful advocate around ADA work, so thank you both so much. With that, I will move approval to receive and file the Americans with Disabilities Act Action Plan and Language Access Report for 2019. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and that item carries. With no further business before us, this committee is adjourned.